So now that we've created our record Shock 270 test, we want to verify that we've set this up correctly. So it's 4 channels. We're going to be retrieving data from uh, this meter, or the 4 logs. I should say log 1 with all those quantities that we previously set up in historical log 1. We want to make sure we got all our settings right. If we check on recorder, the communications, just to verify everything looks good. We're connecting at IP, connection type IP. Nothing else. If we put a password in this meter, we would that would probably be the advanced portion of this. Now we'll show you how to set that up. But for right now, it's just a basic setup. When I click on for our config file, we talked about that before. So that's pretty much good to go. So from here, we can do a test to verify that the meter is programmed right. What I always recommend is performing a status check before doing an interval check, data retrieval. So let's look at one. Let's select status check, and we'll just schedule go, and we'll see it execute here. So as we could see, it's connecting to the meter, and the status check is completed. So basically it brought in, these are the readings that the meter sees currently. So we don't have much information in this meter because we just created the log, but we can go back to communicator and we just confirm what the energy looks like under energy, and just to see, can we compare the two roughly. So 166598, 16574, and so when MV90 does not execute a freeze, but it does a snapshot at the moment, but the other information continues to register as it's doing a snapshot. So it's not like some other meter manufacturers require a freeze command. This doesn't require it. But basically, it's a snapshot taken, and it's the reading is incrementing while it's doing its interrogation. So this confirms that all our checks and setting up the record has been completed successfully. Ordinarily, I'd say at this point we're good to go, but we have to do some other things. So the next step we want to do is perform a partial read. Now you can make your call from here, from the master file here, or you can do it from the monitor, which is here's your remote interrogation icon. This gives you a little bit more flexibility when you have when you select from the remote interrogation icon from the monitor versus when you do it from the master file. I generally recommend that people don't schedule from the master file, but you can, but it's not a big deal. So all my data here I scheduled here. You see, you can print the screen, disk, or to a printer, and the next call in, and so on, schedule call in types. This meter has the ability also MV90 has the ability to call in to MV90 system. We're not doing anything like that. That's a pretty elaborate scheme. So we could click cancel here and minimize. I think we're done with the master file. We could close it at this point. And here we have the remote interrogation page, which we pulled from the shortcut screen. That's also available from the retrieve data screen. So all of this is just a shortcut that you can use. But we'll look at the retrieval, which we have here, and we'll open up a Shark 270 test is the ID that we chose, and we can click on the drop down to make sure we find it. Okay, it's going to be by recorder ID, which is what this ID is, and we're going to do I'd say an all read. If it's the first time we're retrieving data from this meter, it would do an all read anyway if you selected partial. If you read it a few times, every time after that, you would select partial. So what I'll do is I'll select partial, status, read register, status check, and read register are something we didn't really talk too much about other than what we saw previously, just basically connecting to the meter and bringing back some information. And verification is not something that I recommend doing. It's not required. These are right functions below that on the screen, so you have the ability to set the time if the time is off, initialize recorder, and which we're not doing that, and reset billing, and these are probably the big one here. If you want to reset the billing or the demand reset to demand, which the meter has, actually we've seen here, that the meter has, does do end of month billing resets automatically. So, but if at any moment in time, if you wanted to do a reset of the demand values, you could select it from here. So you have more choices from the remote interrogation page. So let's go ahead and schedule it. So I'll click on the calendar, and this is what comes up: scheduling parameters. So this is a present time, it's fixed time. That's the moment in time at this moment. You could schedule that frequency at 1 minute, 5 minute. Now this meter records data in 5 minute blocks or 5 minute intervals. So it wouldn't make sense retrieving the meter every minute. You'll get no new data. But if you schedule for every 5 or 10, 15 minutes, you could use repeat frequency option. So if you schedule that, you could specify date and time. Today is the 6th at 15:37, and this would be a stop time. If you wanted to end on the following day around the same time, you would do 5 minute repeat frequency, and it will stop at that stop time in the future. Any workstation, my workstation's NC. I'm familiar with doing this because on a network, this is not a network application or network installation, you would have many workstations on there, and if you schedule it to a particular workstation, you won't see it actually come up in your XICOM. You'll see it in the monitor, but you won't see it in XICOM. And then below are export functions for doing a number of things. You can have the meter go out, schedule a call, build an export file, and set it to automatically send to someone. And these are all options that you have. Urgent means it will go immediately, regardless of what workstation type you set, whichever one that appears or pops up as it's constantly scanning for task, it will go out. So normal is fine, and we'll schedule it to disk. So what that means is the call will go out and will print the validation to disk. So I'll click go ahead, go, and it schedule, as you can see. So nothing's here shows up yet because we've missed our 1537 up to 1539. So in order to get it to execute it, you just enable, I should say disable, and enable it again, and it'll pick up the task. So this is what an interrogation looks like. It's doing a partial read right here, and now it's bringing the TOU, which is the actual registers. It's bringing into the register database. And it's one of the reasons why it's so fast. I removed all the timing TO settings, so it would just execute at and operate at the network speed. If it's actually failing too quickly, as you with the default settings, and it's not getting through, you can go ahead and adjust the timing, so it will slow down the process of retrieval. So this says it was completed. This is the Shark 270 TIM, dated 01/10/20. By the way, I didn't go over that, and it's completed the task at 1539. So now I could go look and take a look at my data directory. So we could close this for now. We can actually disconnect and close out communicator. We're not calling this meter again. And so the next important thing, we talk about the master file. That's where we created the records. Remote interrogation, this is where we schedule the calls. Data direct is where all the data comes in. So when they first developed MV90, it was generally called, or this particular area, the translation directory. And that was named after the method that was used for translating magnetic tapes from meters that did not have that were not solid state, and did not have this type of capability. And so they normally refer to this as the translation directory, but it is the data directory is the language that we use, data directory maintenance. So this is what appears when you pop up into the data, when you click on the data directory option from the shortcut, and the device ID is, these are all device ID by group, ordered by path, all these different options for choosing if I wanted all the IDs on my system on this particular date. And this is the drop down where I could choose all in the date range or the latest in the date range. So in this particular one, it doesn't matter. I only have one file under um, this new name, which is Shark 270 test. And always click on the drop down to confirm that's the one I have. These are all filters on the right hand that you can change or view or filter basically for what you want to see reported on the data directory page. So I think we're good to go. We have 531 we're going back to, and then we just click select. So the meter came back, test as group, and it came back rejected. This is the engineering units file name E000. When I talked about, I'm not sure if I did, E files and P files, but the meter by default is an E file or engineering units meter. The stop date and time, and the path. And so an origin is remote interrogation. If it was being imported from from another system, you may see TR or I believe, I'm not sure if I remember the others, but basically, if there was meter data was edited, you would see yes in this column and so on. So anyway, the remote interrogation went through. The thing is, it came up as rejected. And so it's important when you scan the system, it could be tens of thousands of meters you're reading every night. You set up your system to scan for rejected data. So that's what comes in as part of the validation. You really want to see everything come up as accepted, but there's a reason why it came up rejected. So what you can do at this point is try to do a validation to screen or a validation to disk, and then access the information. So I'll do a validation to disk. Now I should have in the system, when it goes out, when I initially schedule it, it would have pulled the meter, brought it in, perform a validation, and it would write it to disk anyway. So I could look at that from the report control button here, and that'll show me all the reports that came in, and from a retrieval or it was manually generated. So I could see here I've got 3 reports that came in validation 7/6 at 1543, and I just want to view this. So what you see here is a validation after the last call. It ended at 1535. At least it posted stop interval at 1535. We did get through it, I think, at 1539. Yeah, so it would post to the last stop full interval, which is a 5-minute interval, so it should be 1535. So this is a validation we talk about. Validation is very important if you want to make sure your data looks good and ready to be processed, rather than manually going through it. If there's an error or anything unusual, that would be flagged. So this meter here, it looked at your just start and stop times for that period that it's generated. As a total energy here recorded at 1301, percent difference is 0. These are all pulses that are calculated, and that it's checked against the actual energy start and stop reading, and that shows that they are in agreement. This validation also gives you peak information. It gives you a lot of information. Problem retrieving previous peaks, it says 9, so I'm not sure what that is, but it revealed a lot of information, or revealed a lot here that's telling you what may have taken place. In this particular case, it says that there was a time set performed at 1535. So there was an auto time set when I first read the meter, and so it recorded that as a flag. The next, after doing a time set, it also recorded 1 long interval. So it was behind a little bit, or if the interval was short, I should say it recorded a long interval. So if the time was behind, it would extend the interval further and make that a long interval. What you see here in the translation rejected. So we talked about translation data. uh, validation, as I mentioned before, used to be translation directory. Now the term is data directory. So they look at this as a translation again, rejected, and they give us a status error check because it failed the status event, which is selected. And one of them is test mode was enabled or activated at some point in this meter. Um, and then it said there was some configuration change, which we did the programming change. So these are things that you want to catch in your validation when you retrieve the meter data. So at this point, you can close the validation report. And if you want to really make that, now that you've acknowledged that something happened and you verify there is nothing unusual, we can take a look at the data by clicking on Edit File. So let's look at that. I'm going to go through a screen edit. So you have a few icons here to do your editing. If there's some bad data in there, you could do the editing there or just view it in the screen edit, which is probably my favorite window. So what I could see here, the typical load here is 30, 18 kW, 30, 40, 30. So this is pretty large. I'm not sure if I have something wrong set up in the meter. I'm going to just confirm, but it's telling me that this is 3 megawatts load here. So let's take a look at the meter and just confirm that. So we have watt hours delivered, and we have var hours received data that's coming in, var hours and watt hours. So I'll connect to the meter just to verify what the demand is. So let's take a look at the energy. It's fine, but we really need to look at demand, right? So here the numbers are showing me pretty similar to what we're seeing. So this is basically 3 megawatts. It's showing me load here. There's an average of 3 megawatts, and here you could see MV90. Now this was a long interval. If you see here, it shows long interval. That means a time set. TR, time reset, occurred. And so this is what I may want to edit and fix this interval. If I'm an MV90 operator, I want to fix that so it looks more in line, because here, because of the time set, and it was off for I don't know how long, we can we can verify how long it was that the meter was off out of tolerance. We can see what what caused or why it, and even calculate that difference to determine what it should be. So again, it's been flagged, highlighted here, and it shows a long interval and time set occurred. If I move my mouse over any of the other intervals, there's nothing showing up in the statuses box. So this is very helpful for setting or finding or discovering an issue with a meter, such as a time set. And so we can investigate it from there. But for now, what I'll do is I can manually validate it. So if I want to push this data onto my billing department, I could click exit here, and it'll show up in my data directory as accepted. It should say manually accepted, but it's an MA is, and this might be something new with this, but it should say manual. So if I do a refresh, and I just do a validation to screen, it says, so this, what I'm looking at, is a different file now. So the meter's on, I forgot to mention, it's on repeat frequency every 5 minutes. So I'm looking at this new file that is brought in from 1536 to 1545, and it's accepted. So what I should do is click on the data directory, again, selection, and go in and not choose just the latest file, but all the data in that range. And here we have manually accepted and this new retrieval. So if I click edit under this file here, and the second one that comes up, and I click on the file to screen edit, I see all my intervals look fine, 30, 34, 30, 39, and so on. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fix this other file so it corrects for that peak. So if I edit this file here and I go back in, I'm going to make that look, I would generally take the average of what I could see before, or I could just take this value. So 3031 is what I would put in there, and 1720. So these peaks would not be flagged as a problem or for any billing department. So, so let's save that, update that. It shows up in red, and it will also show in your data directory that it has been edited. And these are all things when we talk about validation, we want that to be shown in the meter. So if I hit a refresh here, and let's bring the edit column over here, we can see that I've edited this this file. So it says it's still rejected. So because we've edited the file and make some changes, it tries to do another validation of the file. So we'll take a look and see why, and I know what it is, but we'll just go through it. So everything looks good. Energy tolerance, it's slightly off out of agreement, but that's fine because we did some modification there. But it came up again, status error check. And so the status error check indicates it's failed the event. Again, test mode, if you set that up for a rejection, it will fail because of that, or configuration. So that's really what took place here. It's rejecting, and it actually showed where I replaced data in the interval I replaced. So what I would do here is do a manual, and it says I need to select it first, and then go in and do a manual accepted. Okay, and then close out. And that concludes the data retrieval portion of this. And also, we did a few things. We verified the parameters for validation. We saw that it failed because certain parameters were checked for failure. And in the next session, we'll go through why it failed and what are the parameters that we can use that the meter reports for failure.